The United States Supreme Court's Dred Scott decision in 1857 denied citizenship to blacks. That ruling opened the Western territories to the expansion of slavery and had substantial financial effects on the country. That crucial decision intensified the conflict between slaveholders and free soilers in the territories. It mushroomed land speculation and fueled an excessive demand for loans. The railroad industry boomed, and an expanding economy encouraged companies to court investors and hunt for new financing. This drive for economic growth generated a surge in the stock market. The gold supply, which had dramatically increased during the 1849 gold rush, now began to decline. In this era, most banks confidently accepted paper currency, knowing that hard money, gold, backed up the paper securities. In the spring of 1857, however, some Eastern banks suddenly refused to accept currencies issued by Western banks that lacked such backing. After the Crimean War that ended in 1856, European nations needed fewer American farm imports. Thus, by the end of July 1856, the value of railroad stocks began to decline. By early August, the oldest flour and grain company in New York, N.H. Wolf and Company, failed, precipitating a gradual sell-off in the stock market. Then, on August 24th, the president of the Ohio Life Insurance and Trust Company announced that its New York branch had suspended payments. This bombshell decision sent shockwaves through the financial community. The demand for a diverse variety of products and services declined. The decline in business volume caused the railroads to lay off workers. Numerous firms closed. The failure of the Ohio Life Company spread hysteria among the public. The Panic of 1857 had begun, and it would last 2 years. I'm Tom Army, and this is U.S. History Online. The economic crisis of 1857 spawned 5 critical outcomes. 1. Republicans wishing to accelerate settlement of the West added a land-grant Homestead Act to the national agenda. 2. The South did not experience the same financial duress that the North suffered. Thus, in 1858, Senator James Henry Hammond of South Carolina made a boast on the floor of the Senate that made him famous. He said, "Without firing a gun, without drawing a sword, should they make war on us, we could bring the whole world to our feet. No, you dare not to make war on cotton. No power on the earth dares to make war upon it. Cotton is king." 3. King Cotton. Because of its high demand on the world market, it radicalized the Lower South. It reinforced Southern nationalism and the concept of a slave empire. The Lee-Compton Constitution promoted the notion of Southern independence and sparked the belief that the South held no future in the Union. Southerners talked of lowering prices in the slave trade to democratize slave owning. 4. Southerners began to look southward to expand the Caribbean islands and South America, not west. 5. All of these elements reinforced the Northerners' fear of the slave power. In the summer and fall of 1858, Abraham Lincoln of Illinois loped onto the national stage in this tumultuous setting to debate the little giant, Stephen A. Douglas. No one knew Lincoln outside of Illinois, yet he dared challenge the famous Stephen Douglas for his U.S. Senate seat. Who was this confident, ungainly, 6'4", slightly stoop-shouldered man with gray eyes and dark brown hair? Because he greatly admired Henry Clay, Lincoln had joined the Whig Party early in his political career. He supported the Whigs' economic program, protective tariffs, federal spending for internal improvements, and especially for America's nascent transportation system. He supported the national bank and a stable currency. Whigs held divided views on the question of slavery, however. Lincoln took his first public stand on the issue in 1837. The Illinois General Assembly voted on a resolution that disapproved of abolitionists. The resolution stated that the federal Constitution guaranteed the right to own slaves, and the federal government had no right to abolish slavery in the District of Columbia. The state Senate passed this resolution unanimously. The House of Representatives passed it 77-6. Only Lincoln and 5 others voted against the resolution. Lincoln introduced into the record a protest that called slavery unjust. Nonetheless, his protest said nothing about eliminating the constitutional protections of slavery. While a congressman from Illinois from 1846 to 1848, Lincoln supported the Wilmot Proviso, which, if adopted, would have banned slavery in any U.S. territory won from Mexico. When Lincoln returned home after his brief tenure in the House of Representatives, his political career appeared over. The Kansas-Nebraska controversy reopened the possibility of a political career for Lincoln. He emerged as the leading spokesman for those in Illinois who opposed the Kansas-Nebraska Act. It proved serendipitous that Lincoln lived in Illinois. The Republican Party lost the state to the Democrats in the 1856 presidential election. If the Republicans had any hope of winning in 1860, they had to regain Illinois. The great Stephen Douglas represented the state of Illinois as well, but citizens across the nation followed his speeches and actions. Few had heard of Lincoln before he debated with Douglas. Lincoln believed passionately in free labor, grounding his belief in the Declaration of Independence. He thought every person should enjoy the natural right to reap the fruits of his labor. Slavery violated Lincoln's free labor ethos. He saw slavery as a theft of labor, a moral wrong. On the broader question of race, however, Lincoln positioned himself midway between anti-slavery radicals and conservatives within the Republican Party. He strongly advocated colonization, a plan to end slavery by returning freed slaves back to Africa. However, states would have to agree, especially the white South. In his Peoria, Illinois speech on October 16, 1854, he admitted that he did not know what to do with the peculiar institution of slavery, but he believed blacks' natural rights had to be protected. Lincoln made clear two other points. The United States could not spread the idea of democracy in the world if we practiced slavery. And if the Union broke, democracy would then fail. Lincoln tried to win an election to the Senate in 1854. He came close. But when it looked like Democratic Governor Joel A. Matson, who had taken no position on the Kansas-Nebraska question, might win, Lincoln told his supporters to throw their votes to Lyman Trumbull. Trumbull was elected, and Lincoln's self-sacrifice made him the likely candidate to challenge Douglas for his Senate seat in 1858. Lincoln ran as the Illinois Republican Party's candidate for Senate in 1858. At the convention which nominated him, Lincoln delivered his famous House Divided speech. The 7 debates between Lincoln and Douglas in the summer and fall of 1858 marked the first clear indication of the political impact of the Dred Scott decision. Lincoln told his audience that no middle ground existed. He charged that Douglas's popular sovereignty represented nothing short of a coordinated effort to expand slavery to all the states. Lincoln drove a wedge into the Democratic Party. Southern Democrats said the Supreme Court gave them the right to bring their slave property anywhere. In the Freeport Doctrine, Douglas said that states could take that right away by not establishing local laws to protect it. For Southerners, Congress had to protect that right. So where did this leave us? In the final debate between the two men, Lincoln moved to a moral attack on slavery. Quote, "The real issue in this controversy, the expansion of slavery in the territories, is the sentiment on the part of one class that looks upon the institution of slavery as a wrong, and of the other class that does not look upon it as a wrong." Lincoln continued, "It is the eternal struggle between two principles, right and wrong. The one is the common right of humanity, and the other, the divine right of kings." End quote. Ultimately, Lincoln lost the election to Douglas, but the race made him a national figure. On November 19th, 1858, 5 years to the day that Lincoln would give his Gettysburg Address, in a letter to Henry Ashbury, Lincoln wrote that Douglas had used ingenuity to break down and to uphold the slave interest. He concluded the letter, quote, "No ingenuity can keep those antagonistic elements in harmony long. Another explosion will soon come." Yours truly, A. Lincoln.